U.S., let us bring in retired Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. He's a CBS News contributor who formerly served as National Security Advisor during the first Trump administration. So, General, there was an article a few weeks ago in the Free Press, which is part of CBS News, and there was sort of a very interesting breakdown of what would actually happen. What would it look like in real time were China to make a move on Taiwan? And it was sort of a step-by-step of, the electricity would go out, they cut off the internet to its people. How quickly, if this were really about a military objective for the United States in protecting Taiwan, how quickly would the United States be prepared to engage in any type of military intervention if China were to make a move in the middle of the night?
Hey, Vlad and Adriana. Hey, it's great to be with you. I think we'd be ready right away, Vlad. Of course, you would want to have more assets there to deal with it if the president was to make the decision, to intervene on the behalf of the Taiwanese. It's not clear the president would do that, right? We have this strategy or policy of strategic ambiguity because we want the Taiwanese to take responsibility for their own defense. But I think that Free Press piece was great. I mean, I think that's exactly what you would see is this kind of escalating coercion to try to get the Taiwanese leaders to cry uncle, and get really what China wants, which is annexation by invitation. Taiwan is vulnerable to that kind of a quarantine or blockade action. They don't have a lot of energy storage, for example, on Taiwan. They should probably increase that dramatically. But in terms of your question, the U.S. could respond right away with our tremendous subsurface capability if we decided to use that. That's our very capable submarine forces. We also have the long-range capabilities you saw demonstrated during Operation Midnight Hammer. We can do what's called global strike anywhere. But also we have some capable allies in the region and allies that are getting more capable, especially Japan, who is doubling its defense budget and placing some important capabilities, what they're calling counterstrike or really long-range precision strike capabilities in some of the southern islands that are able to influence the island of Taiwan as well.
General, let's talk a bit about Iran looming over these talks. I mean, what incentive, if any, does China even have to use its leverage over Iran, the fact that it keeps Iran financially afloat by buying so much Iranian oil, to try to push Iran to come to the table or, have different terms to negotiations with the U.S.? I mean, why would they do that when it is a card that they hold over the U.S. and they could use that card that they have in terms of pressure that they could apply toward Iran in order to pressure us to move toward where they would like us to be on Taiwan?
Right, Adriana, I think counter to what is kind of the conventional wisdom these days, I think President Trump is in a position of relative strength as he's going to China, because I think China has seen it lose a great deal of influence. Remember, its main platform in the Western Hemisphere was Venezuela, and Maduro's in a New York prison. You have the Iranian regime reeling, I think, and really this narrative that Iran has some kind of advantage over the United States at the moment, I think is, it really flies in the face of the facts that so much of their leadership has been destroyed. So many of their military capabilities have been destroyed. And now with this blockade, they're losing about 450 million barrels, $450 million worth of oil revenue a day. They're not going to be able to make payroll, for example. So I think what China fears really right now is losing its ally, its partner, Iran, a country that it signed a comprehensive strategic partnership with in 2021. And Adriana, I think the only reason China has any influence in the Middle East is because it portrayed itself as a way to restrain Iran. Well, that's out the window now that Iran has attacked 14 different nations in the region. So I think China is facing the prospect of its influence in the Middle East going to zero, and then having the United States holding the keys to its gas station in the Middle East. So I think what they're trying to do is, just keep that regime on life support. If they counsel the regime to sign up for a ceasefire, it'll be just to keep them alive. And I think that's what they're trying to do through their client state, the Pakistanis, at the moment.
Who do you think has the upper hand here, President Trump or President Xi, especially given the fact that Trump, when he was campaigning, had a lot of tough talk toward China, threatened these huge tariffs, which are not, have now been largely reduced. But who do you think really has more of the bargaining power?
Hey, I would give it to the United States of America, because I'll tell you, Adriana, when you look at these authoritarian regimes from the outside, they look really strong. Man, I mean, they put on great displays, right? Whether it's school children waving flags or a military parade, but these regimes are brittle. We have to remember, hey, what does Xi Jinping fear the most? He fears his own people the most. In contrast, in our democratic societies, all of our problems are on display, right? The polarization in our society, people's discontent about gas prices and so forth. And I think that Xi Jinping and other authoritarian leaders, they often make the mistake of thinking that that is our weakness. Hey, no, it's our open society that is our strength, Adriana. And I think our economy is in much better shape than Xi Jinping's. I mean, he's got a lot of problems. And I think President Trump is going there in a relatively strong position, geopolitically, but also from an economic standpoint.
Are there any lessons, General, to be learned from the military operations in the Strait of Hormuz that they could use for the Strait of Taiwan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Chinese are following this very, very closely, and what they're doing, Vlad, is they're racing to develop a whole range of capabilities. In the report that just preceded our conversation, a lot of the discussion was about like the nuclear forces, as well as these kind of landing craft and rotary wing aircraft for the invasion. So it's a range of capabilities. First, to keep the United States at bay. I mean, I think China is actually developing, Vlad, a first strike nuclear capability, not necessarily to use it, but to say, hey, if you intervene on behalf of Taiwan, or if you intervene for freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, remember, China's laying claim to the ocean in the South China Sea, then we can strike you. This is why we've seen all the massive cyber attacks against us. Vlad, this is why I wish the president wouldn't be quite so chummy with Xi Jinping and would deliver a little bit of a tougher message on, these Volt attacks where they're residing on all of our critical infrastructure as a precursor to taking us down whenever Xi Jinping says, hey, take down their transportation, their financial, their power grids, and so forth. So they're trying to develop capabilities to keep us at bay so they can have their way with Taiwan or in the South China Sea. That's why they're developing a lot of these long-range capabilities as well. And we should note, right, China was about to sell Iran or give Iran long-range, shore-to-ship missile capabilities. Those were almost on their way before this latest phase in the long war with Iran.
Yeah, you're not the only one, General, who has suggested that they wish that the president were not so chummy with Xi Jinping. I've seen a number of the president's supporters this morning wishing the very same thing, but the Chinese know the way to the president's heart. You know what it is? It's the flattery, rolling out the red carpet, all those children waving flags.
And also the way to Xi's heart is through that sign of respect that's so important, especially.
Very much so. General, always great to have you, my friend. Thank you.
Hey, great to be with you, Vlad and Adriana. Take care.
Thank you, General.